first of all, the New York Times has refuted the WAPO reporting on the Hegseth story. Now, if you remember, the Hegseth story from the Washington Post was playing backup to people like Mark Kelly, who, were part of that, video where like, war crimes and you're going to be tried for war crimes. And if you see a war crime in a legal order, you should disobey it. Okay, well, yeah, they're taught that and everybody should know that. And, again, the Pentagon teaches that to the soldiers. This has never been done by members of Congress, and they were going for something. I don't know what they were going for. But WAPO, of course, sends the message to the rest of the world that, well, it was our Secretary Hegseth who ordered the killing of some people that survived this launch on a boat. They survived, and then Pete called him up and said, kill them! And that's what Mark Kelly was saying this last weekend. Okay, Washington Post. Now, the New York Times, not exactly a Trumpy kind of paper, comes out and says, no, we actually have 5 sources on this. That's not true. That's not what happened. White House responded yesterday, and they said, yeah, it was the commander that made that call. It was all within the law, yada, yada. So it wasn't Hegseth. Then you have Mark Kelly coming on and saying some more things. This one is about the Franklin meme. Franklin, the turtle, the kid's book about the turtle. Apparently, Hegseth retweeted or tweeted a picture of, like Franklin magazine, and he's, up on an American chopper, and he's firing down on, drug runners in a boat, and this causes Mark Kelly to say this.
Possible mission. And instead, he runs around on a stage like he's a 12-year-old playing Army. And it is ridiculous. It is embarrassing. And I can't imagine what our allies think of looking at that guy in this job, one of the most important jobs in our country. In my view, after the President of the United States, it is the next most important job. He is in the National Command Authority for Nuclear Weapons. And last night, he's putting out on the internet turtles with rocket-propelled grenades. Have you seen this?
Oh, it's outrageous. Let me ask you, where were you on the leadership of the Pentagon when they pulled out of Afghanistan? Were you saying, what are our allies thinking about that? How about when, what's-his-face decided to go get, what was it, surgery? Was out on surgery, didn't alert anyone that he was, what was his name, Lloyd Austin, right? And he's out on surgery, and he doesn't tell anybody. Then he goes on vacation, something happens, and they call him, they're like, where are you? And he's like, I'll come back when I come back. Wait, hold it. You want to talk about being in line with the nuclear weapons? What the hell? Where was that one? More importantly, Mr. Kelly, let me ask you, what do you think our allies thought about the health of our nation when several Democratic senators got together and for the first time in American history pulled a Venezuela and questioned the military and said, we will hold you responsible for any crimes against humanity. By the way, we're not telling you what those are. We'll judge when we get back into power. And don't listen to the commander-in-chief. Let me ask you, if people in the Duma would have made that exact same video and said, question the authority of Putin, and if he's telling you to go into Ukraine, that's going to be a war crime, and we're going to prosecute you, and don't listen to them, and don't listen to his Secretary of War either. What do you think? How would we analyze that? Would we think that Putin was strong? Would we think that their society is strong? Would we think that they're a nation that can defend itself, will defend itself, is willing to go to war? Would we look at that and go, that's a strong nation, don't screw with them? Or if we had designs on that nation, would we say, you know what? Up the pressure, because this thing's about to fly apart. So, Mr. Kelly, let me ask you that. Did you think about what our allies might have been saying when you made the video and released it to the world? Bueller? Anybody? That's the outrage here. The outrage is not that they said it. You can go to the Pentagon and say that. You can go bring the Joint Chiefs of Staff in, and you call them on the carpet and say, look, I got to tell you something. We're going to be investigating this if we get control. But you bring them into a private room, and you say that with all your like-minded senators in a private room. You don't make a video and release it to the world. I'll never forget. George Bush called me into the Oval Office, and he was a little upset. And I had said, you know, you want to impeach the guy, you impeach him on this. Look what he's doing in the Middle East. Look what he's doing. And I don't remember what it was, but I said that is the stuff that, at least if it's true, is impeachable. That day I get a call, and Mr. Beck, the president would like to see you in the Oval tomorrow. I go in, and I knew this was going to be the longest hour of my life. And I sit down in the, honest to God, it was in the Zelensky chair. Okay. And I got from George Bush what Zelensky got from Trump. And he starts out with, a lot of people think they know what it's like to be the president. You don't have no effing idea what it's like. And and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be very, very long and agonizing. And we get about a half hour into all of this stuff. And he's telling me what's actually going on the ground. And he knows it all. And he's not hesitating. He's not like, and let me search for a word here. None of that. And I screw my courage to the sticking place and say, excuse me, Mr. President, this is the president that America needs to see. This is the guy. Why don't you say these things to the American public? And he goes off on another tirade, and he tells me about how he has made deals with the Pentagon. He's made deals with the military. He's made deals. He also has all of the eyes. Listen to this. All of the eyes of all of the leaders of the world, including all of their intelligence officials. And they watch everything that every major official says in the United States, especially the president. And whatever the president says, they analyze. He said, I shift my eyes at the wrong time. They think, well, that means he's not saying this. What he's actually saying is this. He's like, I'm juggling so many things in my head that I can't say or can't do because of X, Y, or Z. And he said, that's the job of the president. Now, whether you agree with that or not doesn't matter. The reason why I tell you that story is Mark Kelly. Did you even consider what Five Eyes might be saying about that video? What China, how they might be analyzing that video? How Russia is analyzing that video? How that affects our national stability in this country? Screw, you're trying to, in my opinion, start a color revolution. Screw that. Let's just talk about how does this make us stronger with national defense? You call people into a private room and say that, like has always been done in the United States of America. What you did has never been done in the United States. Not at the time of the Civil War even. Never has this been done. Why? Because people respected the republic. They respected the military. They respected the fact that their voice would be heard by foreigners. and foreign nations, many of them adversaries. And so they showed just a modicum of restraint that you, sir, couldn't find. So please don't preach to me about how embarrassing it is that he's putting a cartoon out. Yeah, I'd rather have my Secretary of War not put cartoons out. But unfortunately, that's the way of the world now, isn't it? I mean, you know, you can only get attention by people with doing stupid memes. You didn't need a meme. You didn't need a video. You needed all of you to get together and say, we'd like the Joint Chiefs to meet us at the Capitol, because they also answer to us, and we have a few things to say to them. And then you say it to them privately, and you make it very, very clear. That's what you should have done. I mean, unless you're trying to collapse the United States, make our enemies stronger, and foment a color revolution, which I'm sure you're... What? Color revolution? I don't even know what that is.